Maple Street's bookstore was Emma Harper's haven, a cluttered sanctuary in Willow Creek where sagging shelves cradled worn paperbacks, and the air thrummed with the warm scent of coffee from the cafe next door. At 19, a literature freshman, Emma stood in the poetry aisle, her dark curls spilling over a threadbare blue sweater, her fingers trembling as they traced the spine of Pablo Neruda's poems. Her hazel eyes burned with a quiet, desperate fire, drinking in lines of love and longing, each word a fleeting pulse against the ache in her chest. 3 years ago, at 16, doctors had found scars weaving through her lungs, pulmonary fibrosis, a cruel thief that promised 3 to 5 years, maybe less. Now, with time slipping like sand, she clung to poetry, letting Neruda's words wrap her heart in a fragile illusion of forever. Single, she wasn't chasing love, just a moment to breathe, to feel alive despite the clock ticking in her bones. Jack Sullivan, 22, a computer science senior, slouched through the bookstore's creaky door, his flannel shirt rumpled, brown hair tangled by the October wind. Single, with a crooked grin that hid the ache of a high school heartbreak he never spoke of, he was there to escape the relentless code looping in his mind, a puzzle he couldn't solve. He grabbed a battered copy of Ender's Game from the sci-fi section, but his eyes caught on Emma, her murmured poetry slicing through the shop's hum like a song carved for his heart. "Hey Neruda, huh?" he said, leaning against a shelf, his voice soft but alive, his book dangling forgotten. "That's some heavy stuff, poetry girl." Emma startled, her book slipping, a flush blooming across her pale cheeks, warm and alive for the first time in months. "He gets it," she said, her voice trembling with hope, like she was stepping onto thin ice. "Love, pain, all of it, it's worth everything." Jack's grin softened, his brown eyes crinkling with a warmth that made her heart stutter. "I'm more into spaceships and aliens, but yeah, love's messy, right?" Their words spilled out, raw and unguarded. Poetry to playlists, dreams to childhood memories. Jack laughed about the robot dog he built in high school, how it sparked and died in his garage, leaving scorch marks his mom still cursed. Emma shared the poem she'd written for her mom's 40th birthday, how she choked on tears reading it aloud, the words too vast for her trembling voice. The bookstore's fluorescent lights flickered, but their voices wove a world where only they existed, the rest of the shop fading into a soft blur. Jack's laugh was sunlight, melting the cold edges of Emma's fear, making her forget the scars in her lungs, if only for a moment. Her wit, quiet but sharp, tugged at him, a puzzle he ached to hold. "You always talk to strangers about poetry?" he teased, flipping through her book, his fingers brushing hers, sending a spark through her veins. "Only the ones who interrupt me," she shot back, a smirk hiding the tremor in her heart. They wandered the aisles, shoulders brushing, sharing lines from books they loved, their laughter bouncing off the shelves like a melody. As the manager called closing time, the sky outside bruised with dusk, Jack's hand grazed hers, a spark that burned. "Can I get your number?" he asked, holding out a crumpled receipt, his voice raw with hope. Her illness screamed, "You don't have time," but his eyes, warm and alive, were a dare she couldn't refuse. "Sure," she whispered, scribbling her number with a shaking hand, her heart pounding like it could outrun her fate. In her dorm, Emma lay on her twin bed, glow-in-the-dark stars fading on the ceiling, relics of a girl who'd once dreamed without limits. Her roommate, Lily, was out, leaving the room quiet except for the soft hum of her oxygen concentrator, hidden under the bed like a guilty secret. She opened her leather-bound journal, its pages worn from years of spilled fears, and wrote, "Met a boy today. His smile makes me forget I'm breaking. He's all crooked grins and sci-fi books, and I gave him my number because he looked at me like I'm whole, like I'm not fading." Her pen paused, ink bleeding into the page, her heart aching with a truth she couldn't voice. Not to Lily, not to her parents, not to herself. Jack's number, glowing in her phone, was a rebellion against the death stealing her breath, a flicker of light in her darkening world. Jack, in his cramped apartment, tossed Ender's Game onto the sagging couch and opened his laptop. Code for his senior project, an app to help kids with anxiety, stared back, but his heart was with Emma. Her blush, her laugh, the way she'd spoken Neruda like it was her pulse. He texted, "Hey poetry girl. Still thinking about that line? Love is so short, forgetting is so long. Too real?" Her reply came fast, a spark in the dark. "Too real. But maybe that's why it's worth it." They texted until 2 a.m., banter turning to dreams, her wanting a novel that would live on shelves, him craving code that could change lives. Jack fell asleep with his phone on his chest, a smile etched on his face, the screen's glow fading into the night, carrying her words into his dreams. They met again at the bookstore, unplanned, a week later. Emma was in the fiction aisle, clutching the bell jar, her fingers tracing Sylvia Plath's name like a prayer. Jack appeared, holding Dune, his grin lopsided, his eyes bright with mischief. "You stalking me?" he teased, leaning closer, his breath warm. "Maybe you're stalking me," she laughed, her curls bouncing, her heart racing. They wandered, sharing lines, their hands brushing until the store's lights flickered, signaling closing time. Outside, under the streetlights, Jack asked, "Coffee tomorrow? Bean and leaf, 3 p.m.? Her heart screamed, "Say no, you can't," but she nodded, her voice soft, trembling with hope. "I'll be there." She walked to her dorm, autumn leaves crunching under her boots, her chest tight with a love she couldn't afford to feel. At Bean and Leaf, the cafe's mismatched chairs and chalkboard menu felt like a warm embrace. Emma ordered a chai latte, its spicy warmth soothing her throat. Jack got black coffee, joking fancy drinks are for poets. They talked for hours, her love for stories that cut deep, his passion for coding hope into apps. "I want to write a novel," she said, stirring her latte, her eyes distant, aching. "Something that lasts, that holds all this feeling." Jack leaned forward, elbows on the table, his eyes locked on hers. "I'm building an app to help kids feel less alone. Like how you make me feel, Em." Her blush burned, a cough catching in her throat, sharp and betraying. She hid it with a sip, but Jack's eyes lingered, worry flickering in their warmth. They left as the cafe closed, their hands brushing, the world brighter than it should have been for a girl whose time was slipping away. Their first real date was a pumpkin patch outside Willow Creek, where kids shrieked through hay mazes and the air sang of cider and earth. Jack's beat-up Honda rattled up, the Nationals About Today humming through crackly speakers, a song that felt like their hearts beating in sync. Emma climbed in, her oversized scarf swallowing her neck, a knit hat perched crookedly on her curls, her smile fragile but alive. "You stealing a blanket or what?" Jack teased, smirking as he shifted gears, his eyes dancing with a joy that made her heart ache. Her laugh, bright and unguarded, filled the car, a sound that wrapped Jack's soul, a home he hadn't known he was searching for. They wandered the patch, dodging toddlers and hay bales, carving pumpkins under a golden October sky. Jack's was a lopsided heart. "Nailed it," he said, winking, pumpkin guts flecking his sleeve, his grin a spark that lit her world. Emma's was a star, delicate and uneven, a fragile mirror of her own fading light. They shared a thermos of hot chocolate, their hands brushing, sparks leaping between them, each touch a promise. "You're good at this," Emma said, nodding at his pumpkin, her eyes dancing with warmth, her heart trembling with love. "That pumpkins are charming you?" He shot back, leaning closer, his voice low, teasing but raw. She rolled her eyes but grinned, her cheeks pink from the cold, or maybe him, her heart pounding with a joy she wanted to hold forever. They sat on a hay bale, watching the sunset paint the sky in pinks and oranges, their shoulders touching, the world soft and perfect, a dream she could almost believe in. Weeks wove into a tapestry of moments that felt eternal, each one a thread binding their hearts. Late-night texts turned into marathon calls, their voices soft in the dark, carrying dreams and fears across the miles. Emma told him about planting sunflowers with her mom every summer, how their golden petals felt like hope against her small hands, a memory that made her voice tremble with love. Jack confessed he'd hacked his high school's website to list pizza every day, earning detention but a hero status among friends, his laugh crackling through the phone, warming her heart. "You're such a dork," Emma teased, her voice thick with affection. "Takes one to know one," he shot back, and she could hear his grin, a sound that felt like home. They'd meet by the riverbank, sprawled on a frayed blanket Jack had swiped from his mom's closet, the world fading to just them. Emma's head rested on his chest, his heartbeat a steady song as they read poetry, Neruda's Odes to Love, Dickinson's quiet stabs at the soul. One crisp afternoon, Jack pulled out his laptop, showing her a game he'd coded, a pixelated heart bouncing across a starry screen, dodging tiny comets. "It's dumb," he muttered, scratching his neck, his cheeks pink with shy pride. Emma's eyes lit up, her fingers brushing the keyboard, her heart swelling. "It's perfect," she said, kissing his cheek, her lips soft, leaving him flushed and stumbling over words. "You made this for me?" she asked, her voice a whisper, trembling with love. He nodded, shy but certain. "Yeah, thought it'd make you smile." She wrote him a poem, scribbled on notebook paper, slipped into his jacket pocket when he wasn't looking. "You're my sky, my storm, my safe place." He found it later, sitting on his couch, reading it under a dim lamp, the words hitting like a tidal wave, his throat tight, his heart too full to hold. "Your trouble, Em," he texted, adding a heart emoji he'd never used, his fingers trembling. "Good trouble," she replied, but her breath hitched, a cough clawing at her chest. She hid her inhaler under her pillow, the disease a shadow she refused to let touch him, her love a secret she guarded with every fading breath. Their first kiss came under a willow tree by the river, a drizzle softening the world into a gray haze, the air alive with the scent of rain. They'd been walking, sharing an umbrella, when Emma tripped, laughing into his arms, her heart racing. Jack's hands cupped her face, rain mingling with their breath, his eyes searching hers. "I'm falling so hard for you," he whispered, his voice raw, breaking with love. Emma kissed him back, fierce and hungry, her hands tangled in his damp hair, wanting to memorize every second, every taste of him. The rain soaked them, but they laughed between kisses, the world theirs alone, a fleeting paradise. She hadn't told him about her prognosis, the years, or less, ticking down like a bomb. She wanted their love pure, a flame untouched by death's cold shadow. They spent nights in greasy spoon diners, splitting fries, stealing sips of each other's milkshakes, chocolate for her, vanilla for him, their laughter a melody in the quiet night. Emma confessed her dream to write a novel that would outlive her, a story of love that burned bright, her voice trembling with hope and fear. Jack shared his plan for an app to help lonely kids, inspired by his own teenage years when he'd felt invisible, his eyes bright with purpose. Their hands intertwined under tables, their laughs echoing in empty parking lots, each moment a treasure she hoarded. They'd drive aimlessly, windows down, singing along to Bon Iver's Holocene, her voice cracking on high notes, his off-key but fearless, a song that felt like their love. "You sound like a dying cat," she teased, nudging him, her heart aching with joy. "And you love it," he shot back, stealing a fry, his grin a light she wanted to live in. But every cough was a thief, stealing her breath, her time, her hope. Walking back from a movie, a rom-com they'd groaned at but secretly loved, Emma stumbled, her chest tightening, her breath a shallow gasp. Jack steadied her, his brow furrowed, worry carving lines in his face. "You okay, Em?" he asked, his voice soft, trembling with fear. She nodded, forcing a smile that cut like glass. "Just clumsy," she said, her voice thin, the lie a weight in her throat. She saw the worry in his eyes, a crack in their perfect world, and it broke her heart. She'd cough into her scarf, hide her trembling hands in her pockets. But Jack watched closer, his touches gentler, his questions softer, each one a plea she couldn't answer. One evening, they lay on the riverbank, stars blazing above the willow, his fingers tracing circles on her palm. "What's your biggest fear?" he asked, his voice low, his eyes on the sky. Her heart pounded, "Dying before I'm ready." "Leaving you." "Spiders," she lied, nudging his side, her grin forced, hiding tears. He laughed, pulling her closer but didn't push, his warmth a bomb she clung to, the stars blurring as her heart broke. December swept into Willow Creek with a bitter chill, and Emma's illness became a merciless thief, stealing her breath, her strength, her dreams. Coughing fits tore through her like storms, leaving her dizzy, her hands trembling as she hid her inhaler in her dorm bathroom, shoving it behind a box of tampons where Lily's eyes wouldn't find it. She blamed finals, a cold, anything but the truth, pulmonary fibrosis, a disease turning her lungs to stone, each scar a countdown to an end she couldn't face. Jack saw her fading, her skin paler than the snow blanketing the campus, the way she paused on stairs, gasping, her lips faintly blue in the cold. "You okay, love?" he'd ask, his hand warm on her back, his voice soft but heavy with a worry that clawed at her heart. "Just tired," she'd lie, her smile brittle, each word a shard of glass in her throat, hating herself for the wall she was building between them. Their dates were still magic, but shadows crept in, silent and relentless, dimming their light. They'd walk through campus, fairy lights twinkling in the bare trees, her arm looped through his, her red scarf, his gift, wrapped tight against the cold that seemed to live in her bones. But she'd tire faster, leaning into him, her breaths shallow and ragged, each step a fight against her body's betrayal. Jack bought her mittens to match the scarf, slipping them onto her hands one frosty evening, his fingers lingering warm and steady. "Gotta keep my girl warm," he said, his smile soft but his eyes searching, catching the flicker of pain she tried to hide. Emma forced a laugh, her chest aching, not just from love, but from the effort to breathe, the secret she carried like a stone. One night, at a campus open mic in the student union, Emma took the stage, her heart pounding so hard it drowned out the crowd's murmur. She'd written a poem for Jack, born in a sleepless night when her coughs kept her awake, each word a piece of her soul. "You're my tide, pulling me home, my always." Her voice trembled as she read, raw and breaking, her eyes locked on Jack's in the dim crowd, his face a beacon of love and fear. The room clapped, but his was the loudest, his eyes shining with tears he didn't shed, a love so fierce it broke her. He pulled her close afterward, kissing her forehead in the hallway shadows, his breath warm against her skin. "That was incredible, Em," he said, his voice thick, breaking with emotion. "You're incredible." But she slipped away to the bathroom, her legs buckling as a coughing fit seized her, her lungs screaming, the tiles cold against her palms as she gasped for air. Lily found her, her face pale, hands shaking as she dialed 911, her voice breaking. Hold on please, you're scaring me." The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and oxygen masks, the paramedics' voices sharp, cutting through her haze. In the hospital, tubes snaked across her face, the antiseptic smell burning her nose, the monitor's beeps a cruel rhythm of her fading life. The doctor, a tired woman with graying hair, delivered the news like a blade. 6 months, maybe less. Emma's parents drove up from their suburb, their faces carved with grief, their hands clutching hers through the sterile fog. "Don't tell Jack," Emma begged, her voice a whisper through the mask, tears burning her eyes, her heart breaking at the thought of his pain. "You can't know." Her mom's eyes spilled over, but she nodded, her dad's hand squeezing hers too tight, his silence a scream of loss. Emma told Jack it was a panic attack from final stress, her smile fragile as glass, her heart shattering as he believed her. He sat by her hospital bed, holding her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her knuckles, his eyes searching for a truth she buried. "You scared me, Em," he whispered, his voice raw, trembling with love and fear. "I'm okay," she lied, the words ash in her mouth, her heart aching with the weight of her deception. Nights became sleepless, her dorm ceiling a canvas for fears that clawed at her soul. She imagined telling Jack, his face crumpling, his stubborn vow to stay through hospital stays, treatments, the end. He'd hold her as she faded, his heart breaking with every labored breath, his love a chain she couldn't bear to bind him with. She wanted him to remember her laughing, alive, her curls bouncing, not a ghost tethered to machines, her eyes dull with pain. She opened her journal, writing, "I love him so much it hurts more than my lungs. I have to protect him from this." The words blurred through her tears, the pen shaking in her hand, ink smudging the page like her fading hope. Lily saw her decline, her questions soft but piercing, cutting through Emma's fragile defenses. One night as they sat on Emma's bed, Lily eating pizza while Emma picked at a slice, Lily said, "You're not okay, are you?" Her voice was a whisper, her eyes searching, wet with worry. Emma shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks, hot and unstoppable. "It's bad, Lil. Really bad." She told her about the fibrosis, the 6-month prognosis, swearing her to secrecy, her voice breaking. "Don't tell Jack, please." Lily hugged her, her own tears falling, promising silence, but her eyes were haunted, her silence heavy with the weight of Emma's secret. "I hate this," Lily whispered, her voice cracking. "I know," Emma said, her voice a rasp, but he'd stay and it'd break him. Her heart ached with every word, every lie, every moment she stole from him. Emma's parents visited more, their worry a quiet storm, their footsteps soft but heavy. Her mom brought sunflowers, setting them on her dorm desk, but their golden petals seemed dull against Emma's fading light, her skin pale as winter. She'd sit by her window watching snow dust the campus, imagining Jack's laugh, his crooked grin, the way he'd made her feel whole, if only for a moment. One night, Jack showed up unannounced with a thermos of hot chocolate, his grin fading when he saw her pale face, her trembling hands. "Em, talk to me," he pleaded, sitting on her bed, his flannel sleeve brushing her arm, his voice raw with desperation. She forced a laugh, deflecting with a joke about finals, but his touch lingered, heavy with questions she couldn't answer, her heart screaming to tell him, to fall into his arms and confess her love, her fear, her end. They tried to hold on to normal, grasping at fragments of their joy. One snowy evening, they built a lopsided snowman outside her dorm, Jack tossing snowballs at her, her laughter turning to coughs she hid in her scarf, each one a stab in her chest. He caught her when she stumbled, his arms steady, his eyes dark with worry. "You're scaring me, Em," he said, his voice low, trembling with a fear he couldn't name. She brushed it off, tossing a snowball back, but the effort left her breathless, her vision spotting, her heart breaking. She leaned into him, pretending it was just the cold, her love for him a fire she couldn't let burn him. Spring washed Willow Creek in soft greens, but Emma's world turned gray, her illness a relentless shadow that stole her light. Her oxygen tank, hidden in a backpack, was her constant companion, its faint hum a cruel reminder of her failing body, a traitor to her heart. She avoided Jack's hugs, terrified he'd feel her bones, her fragility, the truth she couldn't speak. Their dates dwindled, she'd cancel, blaming essays, family visits, anything to keep him at a distance, each excuse a wound she inflicted on herself. Jack fought to hold on, leaving chai lattes outside her dorm, slipping notes under her door. "I'm here, Em. Always." His voice cracked when he spoke, his eyes pleading for a truth she buried, each note a dagger in her heart, sharp with his love. They tried to cling to normal, desperate for the magic they'd woven. One night, they danced in Jack's cramped apartment, the Lumineers ho-hey playing on his ancient speakers, the room lit by a single lamp, its glow soft as their love. Jack's hands rested on her waist, her head against his chest, his heartbeat a rhythm she wanted to carry into eternity. "I love you," he said, his forehead pressed to hers, the words raw, spilling from his soul, heavy with a love that felt like forever. Emma's chest ached, love and pain twisting together. She loved him too, more than her heart could hold, but every "I love you" was a countdown to the end she knew was coming. "I love you too," she whispered, her voice trembling, the words a betrayal, knowing she'd have to let him go. She pulled back, her smile forced, her heart splintering like glass, each crack a scream she couldn't voice. Jack's frustration spilled over one evening at their riverbank spot, the willow tree swaying above, its branches whispering in the spring breeze, a soft lament. They'd been sitting on their blanket, the air warm, the river murmuring, but Emma's silence was louder, a wall that grew with every breath. "What's happening, Em?" Jack asked, his voice rough, his hands clenched in the grass, his eyes stormy with hurt. "You're shutting me out. Did I do something wrong?" His voice broke, raw with desperation, his heart laid bare. She wanted to collapse into him, confess her illness, her fear, her love that burned too bright for her fading body. Instead, she built a wall, the only way to protect him from her truth. "I don't love you anymore," she said, her voice a stranger's, tears streaming down her cheeks, hot and relentless, her heart screaming against the lie. "We're done." Jack's face shattered, his eyes wide with disbelief, his hands reaching for her, trembling. "You're lying," he choked out, his voice breaking raw with a love that refused to let go. Please, tell me what's wrong." She shook her head, her curls falling into her face, hiding her tears, her body shaking as she stood. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words barely audible, her heart breaking with every step she took away from him. The river blurred through her sobs and she heard his cry, a raw, broken sound echoing under the willow, but she forced herself to keep going, each step tearing her soul, knowing she'd left him broken to save him from a greater pain. Emma moved home the next week, her parents' house in a quiet suburb, a prison of memories, a cage for her fading light. Her childhood bedroom, posters of the Killers, a sunflower quilt, felt like a relic of a girl who dreamed of love and forever, a girl she no longer knew. She wrote in her journal, pages upon pages for Jack. "I love you so much it's killing me faster. I broke us to save you from watching me die." Her health spiraled, hospital stays stretched longer, her oxygen tank a constant hum beside her bed, its tubes a lifeline she hated, a chain to her failing body. She'd sit by her window watching kids bike past, their laughter sharp against her silence, imagining a life where she could have stayed his, where they'd have danced under more willows, written more poems, built a future woven with their love. Her parents hovered, their eyes red with grief they couldn't voice, their hands gentle as they adjusted her oxygen tubes, their touches heavy with love and fear. Lily visited, bringing stories of campus life, open mic nights, new professors. But Emma's world was shrinking, her days measured in breaths, each one a fight. She traced Jack's poem, the one from the open mic, her fingers trembling on the worn paper. "You're my always, my never, my now." She wrote hundreds of letters to him, sealed in a wooden box with a note, "For Jack, if you find him." Each letter spilled her heart. "I wanted to grow old with you, to see your app change lives, to write a book you'd read. I'm sorry I couldn't." She'd clutched the box, her breaths shallow, imagining his face if he ever read her words, his crooked grin fading to tears, her heart aching with every unsaid word, every stolen moment. Emma's world shrank to the four walls of her parents' house, a quiet suburb where her childhood bedroom became both sanctuary and prison, a tomb for the girl she'd been. The walls, plastered with faded posters of the Killers and draped with a sunflower quilt worn thin by time, held echoes of a girl who dreamed of writing novels, loving fiercely, living long enough to see it all. Now, at 20, Emma was chained to an oxygen tank, its steady hum a cruel reminder of her failing body, the tubes snaking across her face a lifeline she despised, a tether to a life slipping away. Her parents moved softly around her, their eyes red with grief they couldn't voice, their hands gentle as they adjusted her tubes, their touches heavy with a love that couldn't save her. Her mom sat by her bed, brushing her curls, whispering, "You're so strong, Emmy," her voice breaking on the lie, her eyes wet with tears she tried to hide. Her dad read her old poems from middle school, his voice cracking on lines about stars and hope, his hands trembling as he turned the pages, each word a wound that bled with love. Lily came twice a week, bringing stories of campus life, open mic nights, dorm pranks, new professors. But Emma's world was collapsing, her days measured in moments between coughs that tore through her like knives, each one a stab in her chest, stealing her breath. She'd sit by her window watching kids bike past, their laughter sharp against her silence, their freedom a cruel mirror to her cage. She imagined a life with Jack, dancing under willows, reading poetry by the river, building a future where her lungs didn't betray her, where love could be enough. She traced the poem she'd written for him, the one from the open mic, her fingers trembling on the worn notebook paper. You're my always, my never, my now. The words were a vow she couldn't keep, a love she couldn't fully give, a wound that bled with every thought of him, her heart breaking under its weight. She wrote letters to Jack every day, her hands shaking as she poured her soul onto the page, each word a piece of her heart, a confession of her love, her regret, her pain. The wooden box by her bed grew heavy with them, sealed with a hope she'd never voice. For Jack, if you find him. I wanted to grow old with you, to see your app change lives, to write a book you'd read. I'm sorry I couldn't. You were my sunlight, my storm, my everything. She'd clutched the box, her breaths shallow, imagining his face if he ever read her words, his crooked grin fading to tears, his heart breaking as hers did. She hoped he'd forgive her for the lie that shattered them, for the love she'd pushed away to save him from her end. I love you, she'd whisper to the empty room, her voice fading, the oxygen mask fogging with each labored exhale, her heart aching with every unsaid word, every moment she'd stolen from him. Her parents brought sunflowers, her favorite, setting them on her nightstand, but their golden petals seemed dull against her pale skin, her eyes sinking deeper each day, hollowed by pain and love. Lily sat by her bed one evening, holding her hand, her voice soft with pain, her eyes wet with tears. You should tell him, Em, she said, her voice breaking, tears spilling down her cheeks. He deserves to know. Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her own face, hot and relentless. He'd stay, Lil. He'd watch me die and it'd destroy him. I can't do that to him. Lily didn't argue, but her silence was heavy, her own heart breaking for the love Emma was sacrificing, for the boy who'd never know why. I hate this, Lily whispered, her voice cracking, her hand squeezing Emma's. I know, Emma said, her voice a rasp, her heart breaking with every word, every lie she told to protect him. Emma's health spiraled. Hospital stays stretched longer, morphine dulled the pain but clouded her mind, leaving her adrift in memories of Jack. She'd dream of his goofy grin, the way he'd hum off-key to the Lumineers, how he'd held her like she was his entire world, his love a warmth that still lingered in her bones, a light she clung to. One night, she woke gasping, her parents rushing in, their faces pale in the dim light, their hands clutching hers. We're here, Emmy, her mom whispered, stroking her hair, her voice a lifeline that couldn't hold her. But Emma's thoughts were on Jack, on the life they could have had, the dances they'd never share, the poems they'd never read together. She clutched a letter she'd written that day. I'm sorry I lied. I love you more than I can ever say. The words blurred as her vision dimmed, her breath a struggle she was losing, her heart heavy with a love too vast for her fading body. Jack was a ghost, haunting his own life, the pieces of him scattered like leaves after Emma's goodbye under the willow. Her words, I don't love you, cut deeper than any blade, a wound that bled every day, stealing his breath, his light, his soul. He quit his internship at a tech startup, stopped going to classes, let his senior project, a mental health app he'd poured his heart into, stall on his laptop, its code untouched, a dream abandoned like their love. He'd sit by the riverbank, clutching Emma's poem from the open mic, its edges worn from his touch. You're my tide, pulling me home, my always. Her words didn't match her eyes, which had screamed a truth he couldn't grasp, a mystery that tore at his heart, leaving him raw. He replayed every moment, every laugh, every kiss, searching for where he'd failed, his soul aching with questions. Had he pushed too hard? Not enough. The answers slipped away, relentless, stealing his sleep, his hope, his reason to keep going. He haunted their spots, the bookstore on Maple Street where he'd first seen her muttering Neruda, her curls falling over her book, the diner where they'd split fries and laughed until midnight, the willow tree by the river where she'd broken his heart with a lie he couldn't believe. He'd sit on their blanket, staring at the water, whispering her name like a prayer, his voice breaking, hoping for answers that never came. His roommate, Mike, tried to pull him out, dragging him to bars, parties, anywhere but the river, but Jack pushed him away, his heart too heavy, too broken. She's gone, he'd mutter, his voice raw, a bottle of whiskey in his hand more often than not, its burn a poor substitute for her warmth, a fleeting escape from the pain that consumed him, a fire that wouldn't die. One night, he stumbled to the willow tree, the air heavy with spring rain, his clothes soaked through, his heart a ruin. He shouted her name into the dark, his voice breaking, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the rain, a cry of anguish. Why'd you leave? The river gave no reply, its murmur mocking his pain, his heart a wound that wouldn't heal. He sank to his knees, the poem crumpled in his fist, the ink smudging under his tears, his love for her a fire that burned without end, a flame that tore him apart. He'd loved her, still loved her, and her absence was a void, a question that cut deeper each day, leaving him hollow, a shell of the boy she'd loved. He moved to Seattle in May, hoping a new city, a new job at a tech firm, would dull the pain, would let him breathe again. It didn't. He'd pass bookstores, half expecting to see her in the poetry aisle, her curls falling over a book, her voice soft with Neruda's words. He tried dating once, a kind woman named Sarah who worked in marketing, but her laugh wasn't Emma's, her touch not hers, her eyes lacking the fire that had lit his world. He ended it gently, apologizing, and went home to read Emma's poem, whispering, "What did I do wrong?" To the empty air, his voice breaking, his heart a wound that wouldn't close. The willow tree haunted his dreams, her voice echoing, "I'm sorry," but he didn't know why, the mystery of her goodbye a weight he carried alone, a burden that broke him. Jack threw himself into work, coding late into the night, but every line felt hollow without her, a betrayal of the dreams they'd shared, a life he couldn't live without her. He kept her poem in his wallet, its words a knife he couldn't stop twisting, "You're my always." He'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling of his sterile apartment, wondering if she'd found someone else, if she was happy without him. The thought hurt more than her goodbye, but he couldn't let go, couldn't stop loving her, even as the pain consumed him, a fire that burned his heart to ash, a love that refused to die. By May, Emma was tethered to a hospital bed in her parents' home, her 20th birthday a quiet wound marked by a small cake she couldn't eat and sunflowers her parents hung around her room, their golden petals mocking her fading light, a cruel reminder of the life she'd lost. Her skin was pale as the sheets, her eyes sinking deeper each day, hollowed by pain and a love too vast for her failing body. Lily visited, reading poetry, Neruda's odes, Dickinson's quiet grief, her voice a lifeline to a world Emma was slipping away from, each word a thread she clung to with fading strength. Emma's coughs were relentless, each one a knife in her chest, each breath a battle she was losing, her body a traitor to her heart. She thought of Jack constantly, his goofy grin, the way he'd hum off-key to the Lumineers, how he'd held her like she was his entire world, his love a warmth that still lingered in her bones, a light she carried into the dark. Her parents sat by her bed, holding her hands, their tears silent but heavy, their faces carved with a love that couldn't save her, a grief that broke her heart. Her mom's fingers brushed her curls, her dad's voice cracked as he read from her old journal, poems she'd written as a girl dreaming of stars and love, each word a reminder of the life she'd wanted, the life she'd lost to her failing lungs. Emma clutched a letter she'd written for Jack, one of hundreds in the wooden box by her bed, its weight a testament to her love, her regret, her pain. She'd written it that morning, her hand shaking, the pen slipping. "You were my every breath, my every dream. I love you, Jack. I'm sorry, Elite." The words were her soul, spilled onto paper, a confession she'd never send but needed to write, a final act of love that broke her heart with every stroke of the pen. Lily sat close, reading Neruda. "I love you as certain dark things are to be loved, in secret, between the shadow and the soul." Her voice trembled, her eyes wet as she looked at Emma, so small against the pillows, her breath a fragile thread, her life fading with every exhale. "You're so brave," Lily whispered, squeezing her hand, her voice breaking with love and loss. Emma shook her head, her voice a rasp, barely audible. "I'm scared, Lil." She was scared of leaving, of never seeing Jack smile again, of the darkness waiting to claim her. But she was more scared for him, for the pain he'd feel if he knew the truth, if he carried her loss. Her heart ached with every thought of him, every memory a wound and a treasure, a love she'd carry into the dark. On a rainy June morning, 3 days after her birthday, Emma woke weaker than ever, her breaths shallow, each one a struggle against the weight in her chest, a fight she couldn't win. The room was still, the rain tapping the window like a heartbeat that wasn't hers anymore, a soft lament for the life she was leaving. Her parents sat on one side, their hands clutching hers, their faces carved with love and loss, their tears silent but unending, a grief that mirrored her own. Lily sat on the other, her eyes red, her voice soft as she read the last lines of a Dickinson poem. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. Emma's eyes fluttered, her vision blurring, her chest heavy with a love too vast for her failing body, a love that had been her light, her pain, her everything. She clutched the letter, its edges soft from her touch, and whispered, "Jack." Her final breath carried his name, faint and fading as her hand fell limp, the letter slipping to the floor, her heart stopping under the weight of a love she'd never stopped carrying, a love that broke her and made her whole.